Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to 19 Beautiful 15 as we drill back into what is our Olympic travels through the Europe that never was, as World War I has not begun yet. And as we look at the characters around us and we think, has it been 2 weeks? 3, if you're honest, Pete Abraham. But before we get into all of that, and before we talk times and insanity and characters, we got to learn about these people. So let's start with Honest Pete himself. Finney, how you doing, brother?
Finney's doing much better after having returned from being lost in time and space. So it's great to be back. I think I said it last time, I am utterly terrified. Both in more so, I think, in 1933 than in 1915. I'm actually looking forward to 1915 to see what trouble I can get into smoozing on the Express.
You're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I like that. And since there's optimism there, so let's just go right to beside Finney as we talk to Don. Don, are you too looking forward to 1915?
Yeah. Barnabas is on the hunt for a piece of paper. That's how he spent last episode, and apparently it's really hard to come by. So hopefully he finds that paper this week. I am excited for 1915. I wouldn't say optimistic is the right word for me, but I am also excited for the dark side of things in 1933. That was a pretty big cliffhanger, not so good a situation, and I feel like it's been forever, so I'm ready to get into that.
Fantastic. And as we kind of drill into all of that, and as we sit back and we look at it and we think to ourselves, 1933 definitely, if there's you never pick favorites, but you're going to have to pick 1915 now. And if anybody out there has any type of Photoshop talent beyond my feeble skills, I think a picture of a young Ernest Hemingway hunting out in the Sahara or Serengeti, and there's just a notepad like peeking over I think that in and of itself would really make this all worthwhile, ladies and gentlemen. But speaking about making everything worthwhile, let's go up to Kiana. Kiana, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. Super excited to be back here in the shoes of May in 1915, a little more apprehensively in 1933, because she's doing fine in 1915, other than being pranked by a small child. And the 1933 is not so great, but we'll talk about that later when we get there. No, I'm just happy to be in 1915, ease into it, and then get to the terribleness.
Ease into the 15. That's it is. It's easy like Sunday morning with 1915. And Sundays right now are in a particularly warm, sort of like summer. Nailed that fucking segue. Let's go over to Summer. Summer, how are you doing? And are you too optimistic, happy, love 1915?
I'm doing great. And Mimi's doing great everywhere she is. 1915, 1933, just loving life, having a really good time on this train. Got some really cool messages from the beyond. So yeah, I feel really good. I feel very optimistic. I'm excited.
I love it. The excitement, the optimism, the warmth, the trans-dimensional horrors. I mean, what? No, that's fine. Everything's great. So, all right, we have to go back 2 weeks now to see exactly what has transpired. Let's go with 1933 first, because it was a hell of a time, as the team was captured inside of a room, or had introduced a room that had a cylinder inside of it. The cylinder seemed to be filled with some type of fluid, and upon further investigation, it was determined that blah, blah, blah. But before any of that could really progress, Honest Pete Abraham was attacked. Steve has just donated 12, so I think everybody's going to get a crit from that. if I know anything about young Steven. But so I will add those to we'll go over those in a moment to make sure that everybody has their due. And so as you were all trapped in there, Honest Pete Abraham was wrapped up in a red wire. Combat ensued, where May was also entangled upon trying to free her friend. And in this titanic struggle, perhaps the most powerful of the group, we're not real sure, crept forward and decided to abandon the point of conflict and instead turned her investigative prowess on the cylinder. And as the being known as Aphrodite, or the Tyrannish, depending upon which block you hail, she dove into the water and began to attack the inside of the cylinder. If it was a colloquial term in 2018, fuck it up would probably be the best way to describe her all-out violence and assault on this cylinder. She couldn't break the glass, but she began to rock it. And as everyone else was watching, it began to move, and some of the fluid began to crack when the seals began to shift. And throughout all of this, Honest Pete Abraham was unconscious, and as May and Barney struggled to figure out a way to do something in this situation, May was drawn over to the side where almost a curtain of these wires kind of pulled back, revealing the exterior of this building, an exterior that the narrative had previously established as being somewhere deep beneath some bizarre, featureless ocean. And upon the reveal of these wires and this curtain opening, there was a man crouched in the silt and sand of this featureless ocean. The man turned out to be none other than Jack Kilgrave, former friend of all of the Olympians inside this chamber. As everything began and everything kind of reached a thunderous peak, Jack awoke. He was able to pull a piece of stone tablet from his side of the glass. The tablet, upon May's inspection, revealed in Aramaic a partial term and some other lines, and it said, which she could read, "The Gospel according to Pilate." And as that was standing there, and as he pressed that against the glass, Barney did what he thought was right, as Aphrodite bit into one of the wires at the bottom of the cylinder, illuminating or activating or jump-starting or, I don't know, picking or, some type of hot wiring of this device. And as Barney cast a spell to rob an empath of her feelings, Aphrodite remembered who she was, and that person was Mimi. Now, back in 1915, everybody was looking for a piece of paper. Let's get started. Well, Mimi also had an experience with a shadowy figure that said that she should get away from these people, that it was going to end in her destruction. That was sort of poo-pooed because there was a piece of paper that had to be found. And guess what, everybody? I think they found it. We found it? They found it. They did not find it? No paper? Okay. Episode 2, the search continues. Transit. All trying to find paper here. All right. So anywho, as we get into it, we are going to start back in 1915, and we are going to drill into the sleeper car area where we were in this quest for paper. And because I am a benevolent keeper, I will allow you to, as you're walking back, the same woman that had opened her door upon Barney's knocking, the one that promised that she had a bottle of gin, upon hearing more movement on the outside and the deep voice of Barnabas Norwood, the door again slides open as the woman ignores Mimi completely, despite her proximity to Barney. The woman has in her hand a pad of paper and a bottle of gin. And she says, "So, you come back for seconds?"
Well, ma'am, I didn't really get firsts, but I see you have a pad of paper there. Would you mind if I borrowed a piece at least?
"A piece, you say?" And she sort of reaches up. "How many pieces?" "Oh!" And she just barely brushes the top strap and reveals a little bit of flesh as she says, "How many pieces would you like? Would you like one now? and a couple later, or I could give you half a piece. And she kind of teases, like tearing half a piece off of a spiral-bound notepad.
Barnabas's cheeks go flush, and he kind of glances embarrassed to Mimi, and then
Yeah. She's like walking over and she reaches out and grabs Barney's hand and she's like, he's actually with me.
Is this your daughter? She's beautiful.
no, this is my soon to be wife.
That's
Your
right.
wife. And she kind of
Mm.
pulls. Your wife, you say? She seems awful young for you. You seem like you need someone a little bit more mature. Maybe somebody with paper.
Well, I'm not going to go in there with you just for a piece of paper, ma'am. But I hope you have a lovely train ride.
She wiggles the bottle of gin as if there is more than just paper inside these walls.
Mimi starts like dragging him away.
Oh, nice to meet you. I'm sorry. Hope to see you again.
Well, here, I heard that you needed some paper. So she pulls a sheet out and she depresses her lips into the corner, leaving a lipstick mark. And she kind of folds it and hands it out to Barney.
Yeah, he'll take the paper, but he'll avert his eyes. He won't make eye contact with her as he gets pulled away.
Good, then there's no way that you could make a dex roll when she lightly brushes the top of your hand with her fingers and kind of traces your knuckles for a second, running up and down the ridges as she just dances her fingers along them. And then kind of squeezes a bit. You need a more mature woman.
Well, I have to go. Bye.
Mimi lingers for just a second, like shooting daggers at this woman. Could I reach out and touch her and possibly make her kind of afraid of me?
You want to reach out and try to inject fear into her?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, give me, we're gonna do 2 rolls here. I want a power and I want a persuasion.
All right.
I don't know where I'm looking. Holy
Oh my
shit. Well,
I
all
mean,
good things. Okay, everybody, for those of you at home, that was a 46, which is a success for a power. And on her persuasion, she received a critical, which is a number 1, which is the best you can do. So you're going to reach out and like touch her?
yeah, just reach out and grab her wrist, like as she's pulling away.
Okay, so as she's pulling away, she seems to like allow you to do this as if, how dare you touch me? And when you do, she seems ready to protest or even to call Barney back as if, look what she's doing. And as soon as your flesh touches her flesh, as soon as you make like physical contact with her, you see her face go slack as it, like the muscle control drops and her cheeks kind of sink, and you see this look not of being afraid or off put or like a lingering dread. You see absolute terror as she looks at you, and you see that the front of her nightgown starts to get dark around about mid-thigh as she releases her bladder as being completely terrified. And she tries to pull away, but it's that fear where she's so frozen, all she can do is look and wonder what's going to happen next.
Mimi just smiles and she says, I just hope I don't see you again.
She turns around and goes back inside her quarters, and the door slowly closes.
Would Barnabas feel any of this? Like, is this something that he would be aware of?
Make a power check, because that was pretty powerful.
Let's see. A hard success.
Okay,
Oh no,
so
this is 1915, just a regular success.
okay, so as you are sitting there, you're kind of walking away from all this just to get away from her, Barney, and May deliberately did this while you kind of weren't watching. So for a moment, you feel that feeling that you received when you were back in the Navy, and it was that moment right before a battle starts where you have just one last second to spare for being scared before you have to focus on something else. And that 1 second of fright that every soldier feels right before they do something, and then it's gone as they focus on the point at hand or the task at hand. You feel that again, maybe perhaps for the first time since active combat. You feel it like kind of filter through you, and it's gone as quickly as it arrived. It's gone.
And he's sweating a little bit, and he doesn't know really why, and he's got that flutter in his chest. And he'll look back, but I think he looks towards the door as the woman goes in, thinking that maybe there's something off about her. He doesn't connect that maybe there's something off about Mimi.
Yeah, she just turns back towards him and smiles and starts walking back down the way they were heading. It's like, come on, honey.
Oh yes.
Summer, as you're kind of closing, or as Mimi is closing the distance between where she was and how Barney had reached maybe halfway down the current car, as you're walking down through there, you hear a whisper in your ear. They will be the death of you.
Just gonna ignore that. Keep on keeping on.
Okay, you guys are together, and you do have one piece of paper. Should you wish to bestow the lipstick-clad paper or sealed paper to May?
He has Dietrich's pen. He has a piece of paper from Jen Woman, and he'll say, "Well, there's something I want to show you and the rest of the team. Where did you say May Young was?"
I think she should just be getting dried up in our room. We could go get her real quick.
Oh no, I don't want to bother her if she's getting dressed. Maybe we meet. Well, it should be somewhere private.
I mean, I'm sure she won't mind.
Maybe we can knock or something first.
Well, all right, we can knock.
And I would like to. I'd like to get the other team members in on this too. I'd like to go find Pete and Mr. Dietrich as well.
All right. Well, I think they're still drinking.
Ooh,
So
okay.
I could get May, and then we could meet at the room if you wanted.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you for your help, and thank you for the cover there. I'm just, something about that woman makes me feel really uncomfortable. I can't quite put my finger on it.
I don't think she'll be bothering us again.
Well, good. I hope not. I'll go get the guys, and I'll meet you in the room.
All right, sounds great.
And we're going to stay here in 1915 as the camera kind of pulls out of this car of the Orient, and it tracks a bit outside the glass as Barney begins to retreat, going back towards the cocktail party, maybe stepping a little quicker as he gets near the door of the gin woman. And as he passes, she does not emerge, and he is able to retreat the several cars back towards the cocktail car. And as it pulls back, and we drill back in, we see Honest Pete Abraham holding court, as in the corner of the cocktail car, to the gazes of 10 to 15 of the most influential people that are currently in the car, Dietrich not among them. Oh, Honest Pete, what am I doing? You're the talker, take it away.
So Pete has been doing his best to schmooze various people within the is it the drinking car, the social car?
Social car, yep.
Yeah, and At this point, he has raised a glass in toast, and he's saying, "I believe through our tireless efforts, we will bring about decades of peace in Europe and the world. Let us raise a glass to peace." And Pete will highly raise his glass up in to bring unison to the 10 or 15 people around him.
And as one, the 10 or 15 people, oh, yeah. And the glasses, different nationalities, French, British, German, everyone raising a glass in salute of this, an era of peace here in 1915, as it is claimed by Honest Pete. And as everyone is kind of caught up in the fervor of the moment, there are another rounds being brought as the waiters and waitresses quickly rush about refilling drinks and producing fresh glasses as everything is kind of happening all at once. And Pete, you're called over to the bar by a very richly dressed woman who has been listening to you the whole time. This woman, as you have known her and as she's introduced herself, is Miss Lorna Campbell Barnes. And she is dressed very smartly. You know, she's she's American. And she is traveling here aboard the Orient Express, also bound for Constantinople. And as she kind of pulls you over, as you're making your way towards the bar, you get claps and handshakes and, "Oh, I love the speech, rousing it was, and it's exactly what we need in these times, you know, blah, blah, blah," as you're getting over there. And as you get over, she produces a drink for you and kind of slides it across. You have not been getting your own drinks for quite some time, as is the
Perfect.
pleasantries of a trade. You are able to produce drinks by sheer force of bullshit. And so as as Miss Campbell Barnes is sitting there, she looks at you and raises her glass and sees if you will kind of clink it with her.
Absolutely. But yeah, without hesitation.
Okay, so with a clink, she goes, "That was a nice speech."
Well, just doing my part as part of the delegation.
Now, the delegation, you said, well, what is that, of course, about? Because I know delegations from Alabama, and they are quite different than the delegations that I believe you to be a part of. So, Mr. Abraham, what are you a part of here?
Well, I'll need you to keep it on the down low, obviously, because
Of course.
there is a matter of secrecy involved. But
It seems that way.
President Wilson and former President Taft has assigned me and a few other associates on a very, very important mission.
A mission.
And yeah, I am. You can consider me the lawyer.
The lawyer, well, I can't say that attorneys or men of law are taken well in my neck of the nape, but I'll take your word for it, Honest Pete. You are the lawyer. Hush, hush, secrecy.
Oh yeah, see, we're working on shoring up with our allies across Europe the U.S. commitment to peace in Europe.
Catchy title.
Hey, you got to stick with what sells, right?
Okay.
And there are, I do have some. Luckily, I have some other members who, they have their particular skills and knowledge base that, unfortunately, I am severely lacking in. I am a man of American and international law.
Well, at least you're a drinker, Mr. Abraham. Otherwise, we might not have too much in common.
Amen to that. And I will raise my glass again as another toast to drinking.
She clinks it again, and with the clink, leans in conspiratorially, and she says, "Do you know why I'm here?"
I must confess, I cannot tell a lie. I do not know, ma'am.
Well, ask me nicely and I might tell you. I need a persuade or a charm roll from Honest Pete Abraham if he wants to get the goods from Lorna Campbell Barnes.
I'll go with the charm, dude, because smooth talker ability.
There you go.
Success.
Okay, so with that success, she leans forward, and with your commitment to wanting to know more and not being able to tell a lie that you did not know, she says, I'm a collector. I collect only the finest in Bibles. Grew up around him, you know. Father a preacher. Not too happy with my current state he is, but it seems that in Constantinople they have found a new edition of the Bible. Scandalous. Seems that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were just perhaps had better publicists. There are other writers about Jesus Christ. It seems. I'm going to find me a new edition, I think. What do you think about that? Are you a God-fearing man, Mr. Abraham?
I think you have to be, don't you?
Of course you do not.
Well, I would definitely say I am. Absolutely. Although I would say that the devil makes his points too.
She laughs a little bit at that, raises the glass, and clinks it. At just that moment, the far door opens again, and Barney kind of comes through the... Barney, as you've been passing through the different cars, you see that it's beginning to snow along the route. And as you kind of go back in and re-enter, it's at that moment that you see Dietrich, who is talking to a rather large man, turn, not noticing you, turn towards Honest Pete, and he says, "Ah, my dear Mr. Abraham, come here. I would like you to meet someone from my homeland. It is, his name is Werner Schmidt." And as Honest Pete turns to look in that direction, and as Barney closes in on the area, and as Mimi and May finally get pen to paper, perhaps, we pull back out to 1933. And so as 1933 arrives in all of its hideous splendor, we are forced with the following realization. As May, you are looking at the trapped form of Jack Kilgrave on the other side of this glass. As you see a former friend in a state that should have killed him being submersed within this, or at the bottom of this sea. And more importantly, as we look over to the top of the cylinder, and where Barney is staring through the now clear water to the bottom, where the eyes of Aphrodite have rolled up and for a moment became clear with the memory of Mimi. It's at that time that the being that she is able to somehow reassert the control that it's held for so long over this form. And as it grabs again, you might say by some type of boon, it turns off Barney's spell, reverses the thrust, and Barney, for a moment, you feel your body go numb as the backlash of this spell hits you, not robbing you of emotions, but for a moment, the nerves in your body just cease or fuzz or have a static about them, and everything just buzzes along your entire body, almost to the point where you can't feel the lighter in your hand. Though you don't drop it, its presence is unknown because the nerves are so jumbled. Pete, you come to, lying on the floor. You are 13 hit points down from where you currently were. Your ribs feel like hell. Straight shooter is beside you. Your cane is beside you. Your jacket is about 10 to 15 feet away from you, heading towards the cylinder. The cylinder at the bottom holds Mimi. At the top, you can see Barney looking down. And from your position on the ground, further past the cylinder, you see May as she has her hand out against the glass, touching someone that looks a hell of a lot like Jack Kilgrave. What does everyone want to do?
Remember that time I was trying to kick this thing over?
I remember it fondly.
I would like to do that.
You would like to do that. Okay.
Yes.
Once again, roll what you were rolling, which I believe we were doing just straight strength.
2d8.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
Yep. Yeah, just roll me what you got.
Sure.
Barney, as she looks up and the eyes go back to the work at hand. And actually, I'm going to ask this question of Summer. Does she look away when she continues? Because she met Barney's gaze for a moment, which allowed the spell to take hold. With the light illuminating and she was biting into this thing, now she kind of looked up through the water to Barney, to Poseidon. Does she look away when she continues her assault, or does she keep her gaze locked with Barney as she's...
I think in that like brief moment that she remembered herself, you would see this kind of look of fear flicker across her face. But that passes, and she just like her eyes almost go dead. And I think she does look away and keep trying to knock this over.
Okay, so with this last titanic effort, this Barney, you feel the balance of this platform you are on begin to get compromised. It leans, and for a moment you think it's past that point of no return, and then it rocks back into place, almost like a giant beaker. But as it's doing it, you feel a lot of the mass kind of start to shift out of it. Pete, make a dex check for me, sir, if you would like to get out of the way of the fluid that is now rushing towards you.
Well, we'll try. It's probably not going to go well. Oh.
So, Pete, as you kind of look and take all of this in from your point on the floor, as it rocks and lifts, a wave of this fluid rushes out underneath. It's got a consistency and a power with it of like a small ocean wave. And as it hits you, it doesn't, hurt or do anything like that. But what it does do is on this odd wooden floor above this wiring is it sort of rushes you a bit, as this has a slicker consistency to it. It's not oil, it's not grease, but it's almost like it's got a bit of detergent in it or something that makes it a little bit, it gives a little bit more than normal water. And as it carries you, you turn and spin and are taken with it, not far, just 4 or 5 feet. But unfortunately, 4 or 5 feet behind you is a puddle of acid that is burning its way through the floor. And so as you look and see this, as it's rushing towards you, you get to make a dodge roll at disadvantage because you are being pushed. It's at this time, too, that I will mention that you have crits for no particular reason. You are muted, my friend. Either that or I've lost all sound. Okay.
No, I think it was me. Let's burn a crit in bringing some hopefully some good luck to Pete.
Okay, let me see if I can. That's not you. There we go. You have burned a crit, and so in doing this, as you burn a crit, You are able to roll out of the way, and as you roll, Pete, it spins you about, so you're heading face first towards this acid. And as you stop and finally get on dry ground and put your hand up on these boards, you stop and your face is maybe 2 to 3 inches away from the sizzle as you catch that smell of burning wood that is literally spitting and popping right in front of your nose. Barney, roll a dex check for me, please, plus 20% as you kind of saw this coming. Yeah, you're able to, much like as you did on ship during a storm, you're able to kind of keep your sailor's legs about you as you watch the rock. May, you would definitely hear this, but you are currently engaged with Jack. I will allow you to look or not look according to whatever you would do.
Oh no, May's looking.
Yeah,
She
you see
knows
that
her husband's back there.
there's
she
a
would
bit
like
of
to
a-
know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, Jack's looking. You can
Yeah.
see that Jack's looking past you now, like over your shoulder, watching what's going on, now being able to kind of, you see him getting close to the glass as if he's able to make out at least shapes or something from your side. And as you turn around and see all this, what would May like to do as Barney's rocking on the top and you see Aphrodite seemingly continuing her assault?
You mentioned there was a control panel at the top of this thing, right?
There is.
Right. And how many of these walls still have like wire curtains over them?
Well, there's the door that you guys came through that seems to have wires around it, but it's got that opening with the door. The door, from the door that you came in,
Mm-hmm.
there's the right wall, which is completely covered with wires. There is the left wall, which is completely covered with wires. And there is the far wall, which is currently open curtain-like, and you're standing in front of. So you're at the opposite side of this square chamber from the door in which you entered. So there are 2 other walls that seem to have this kind of bank of wires around them, and then partially around the wall of the door that you came in through, all leading up to that dome above you, where they seem to kind of either rush outside or to points unknown.
Okay. May at this point kind of glances back at Jack and not knowing if she's going to hear her, just like, I'll be right back. She's going to try to book it to the...
He just
control
nods.
panel.
You see him kind of slowly nod as he realizes something's wrong.
I'm going to try to go to that control panel.
Okay, I will allow you to get to the control panel. If you want to do something when you get there,
Yes.
I'm going to need you to roll a... Let's see. What do I want you to roll if I want you to get up there quickly? What can I do to be a total douchebag? Let's see.
I don't know, Greg.
Oh, well, let me figure it out. I tell you what I'm going to need is either a jump or a climb to kind of increase your ability to get up there faster. And by that, I mean, you're kind of leaping up the stairs. You're grabbing hold of, ripping yourself up, something to get you there quicker than the traditional route.
Okay, well, neither is great, but we'll go with it.
I will also mention you have crits.
Right. Whatever, I rolled it.
That's super fail.
I know, thank you.
You're able to get kind of almost to the top of the level. You can see the control panel up there. And as you round up, you kind of lock eyes with Barney as you're both there. We're going to cut back to Honest Pete. Honest Pete, you're 2 inches, 3 inches away from this acid and definitely in the splash zone where this SeaWorld. So what would you like to do, as you can only guess that another one of these little bursts are going to take you somewhere you don't want to go?
Well, the first thing would be probably, because I'm still reeling from the pain of a broken rib. So the first thing would probably be a very loud and probably fairly pathetic just yell of utter pain and fear, and then would start probably just because of the amount of pain he would be in, just kind of to throw himself back first to kind of get away from the immediate acid that he is apparently extremely close to.
With your full movement here and not being under attack or coming out of unconsciousness, I'll allow you to stand up if you'd like. Do you have a direction you'd like to go or an action you'd like to do in addition to standing up?
Yeah, I would like to try to pick up and holster straight shooter, and then use the cane to actually kind of hobble myself up to my feet, and then oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, absolutely, yeah, you can be standing with the cane and the holstered straight shooter. If you want to make your way in any direction, let me know, and that's where we can end it as you kind of re-upped yourself.
Who would the closest person be to where I am?
Everyone right now is seemingly congregated on or in the cylinder. So you can see both of your friends, Barney and May, on the top, sort of like a bride and groom on a wedding cake. And you can see Aphrodite inside, like some type of demonic stripper at a bachelor party.
And is Jack still on the side?
Jack's on the outside looking in, much like the outcast cousin who was not invited to said bachelor party or wedding.
Oh gosh, I will attempt to make my way to the bottom of the cylinder to look in. That's where my coat is, I believe, also, right?
Your coat is, yes, just at the bottom. And when you get to where your coat is and look at the bottom, you're literally whatever this material is, depth away from Aphrodite, who you can see perfectly because the cylinder is now illuminated with some type of sourceless light, as it is glowing much like a bulb would.
Okay, and I can plainly see the lady formerly known as Mimi inside. You said?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, probably at this point, Pete, again, just kind of out of his element, would probably just yell to Barney and May, just like, what are we gonna do and how are we gonna get out of here? Just kind of, this is beyond Pete's skill level. What are we gonna do?
You guys hear Honest Pete Abraham ask the question to end all questions. But before we get a chance to hear an answer from Barney and May, we get to hear let's hear the other side story. Let's hear the rebuttal. Aphrodite, what would you like to do?
Tip it over. Tip it over.
Roll it. Boom! Again, and this time, everyone starts to feel on the top. It's giving, it's moving. Pete, at the bottom, you realize this thing has scooted about 2 to 3 inches off of the raised platform that it's on, and it's coming your way as each kind of smash of the feet of Aphrodite against the side is just, the sheer violence is displacing this huge cylinder. And when she does it again, it moves about another inch or two closer. Again, water rushes out. This time, as you're prepared for it and standing, it doesn't take you off your feet, but it rushes over your shoes and quickly kind of disperses and sizzles down among the acid. And as you're standing there and looking around, I want dex checks from both May and Barney. Barney, you get the plus. May, I'm going to give you the plus of 20% as well because there's a lot to hold on to up there and it's not that bad yet, but let's see what you got.
Hard success.
Yeah, even without it, you guys are able to kind of sit there and hang on. Barney, what would you like to do as you see the assault is in full force and continuing as Aphrodite means to shatter and or tip this thing, and she's been down there several minutes now, and as any Navy man will tell you, being under the water several minutes is possible. Being under the water several minutes and doing shit like trying to tip over something or swimming, next to impossible because you run out of air real quick.
So First off, is the control panel, is it actually a part of the cylinder? Like if she tips over the cylinder, does the control panel go down too?
You got a sneaking suspicion that this platform and control panel were built around the cylinder, not as a separate structure. So it is definitely attached in some way to the cylinder. No roll required.
So before the backlash of Aphrodite coming back into being, when Barney sees that look of recognition on Mimi's eyes for a second, he sort of, the word escapes from his mouth, Mimi. And he's about to say something else when he goes numb. He starts swaying back and forth, and it's all he can do just to kind of like get down on his hands and knees and hold on to the platform, keep from tipping over. But once he is actually able to act again, once he's actually able to do something and then snap out of the daze, the first thing he'll do is eyes locked with May, looking down at May. Is she within arm's reach? If he reached down to her, could she take it? Like, could he offer her his hand?
Absolutely. She's only about 2 steps down, and the platform itself isn't that big. It's maybe like 6 by 6. So you're, no matter where you are, you're close enough to step forward and get a hand and pull her up to your level, or touch her, or do whatever you want to do.
He'll say, I got you, May. And he'll offer her his hand and try to pull her up onto the platform.
Yep, you're able to pull her up.
Okay. Are you all right?
I'm fine. Thanks, dear. And she looks it over at the control panel. Before she knocks it over, try something.
If you want to take a look at the science things, and he'll call down to Pete. Pete, we gotta stop her from tipping this thing over. We have to stop her.
Muted.
I think
you're
muted, brother. You're muted. You're muted, bro.
How tall is the cylinder? Sorry, how tall is the cylinder again?
It's about 15 feet high, and
Okay.
with the so it's over twice as tall as an average height.
And how much like liquid is in it?
Well, it used to be filled almost to the rim. Now it's down about 3 feet.
Okay. So Pete, not the only thing I can think of, just breathe, aim, and shoot, right, Barney? And I'll take out straight shooter and try to shoot the bottom of the cylinder, like towards the side, in order to kind of try to get some of the other liquid out to bring the center of gravity further down.
Okay. As you take a shot, you can obviously hit the cylinder. It's point blank. But what I would like to do is I want you to roll a regular firearms check, your handgun firearms check, to see how bad the ricochet is when you shoot.
Hard success.
Okay, so when you put it in there, you hear this shot go off, immediately followed by a splintering of the wood about 2 feet off to your left as your bullet hits and bounces directly down into the wood, splintering it and hitting some of the wiring beneath it. There appears not to be any damage done to the cylinder itself. Otherwise, Aphrodite would have wrecked this shit a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, I figured too, like Pete had just woken up, so he's kind of like, oh, here's an idea.
No, absolutely. And firearms had not been tried against it yet. I'm just saying registered lethal weapon is currently floating inside it, so.
Does he feel disconnected from his inherent magic? Is that part of the backlash?
No, he does. He's not like taken out or anything like that. He just felt it like a reverberation for a moment. And as we're sitting here, I want two things to happen simultaneously as we had Barney's action sort of been given to Pete, so we'll allow Barney to go through. And just to make up for that, I'm going to have Aphrodite go again, and May, you can go at the exact same time. So as this little conversation happens, and as Aphrodite cocks, locks, and is ready to explode yet again, May, you tell me what you want to do. Aphrodite, I'm pretty sure I know what you want to do. But if it changes, let me know.
Well, I kind of want to use one of my crits.
Okay. So okay.
She can go first. It's totally fine.
No. This is happening at the exact same moment. So let's go ahead and see what May has planned as the last chop of Paul Bunyan's axe is going to fall here in a moment.
Okay, I'm looking at this control panel. I want something that will hopefully activate or had anything to do with these freaking wire walls.
I will let you know this, that let me get over, I have so many tabs open. When you first walked in to this room, May, you rolled a success when you first walked in to look at everything. You believe that just from looking and eyeballing and seeing this stuff, that there is a strong possibility that this device provides current or some type of electrical discharge into the fluid. However, without further study, the effect of this addition of current or electricity to this fluid is unknown. Electrocution, though, remains a strong possibility, as it does with any type of liquid conductor.
Right. And she's in there, and there's liquids everywhere, so that's great. Cool. Fine. This is fine. Okay. So this control panel would just send electrical currents through the water. Okay. And just from the control panel, is it just like one button, like turn on, or is there several?
In the seconds that you have, you're able to decide that if this were to be activated by a lever on the side of the control panel, electrical current would be introduced somehow into this scene, the effect of which is unknown.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like to do, May? To be or not to be? That is surely the question.
And how much of this liquid is everywhere? It's everywhere, right? Like in terms of being spilled out.
It's currently kind of puddled up around Pete, too, if you really want to know. But
yeah, that's...
like Pete's standing in it. He's covered in it. But that's neither here nor there. That's down there. That's not... Let's pretend like I didn't say anything. Pete's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah, seeing this and again having apprehension because who she knows is Mimi is in that liquid. She's not. Glances over and she's just gonna pull that fucking lever.
Okay, so with the pulling of the lever, several things happen. A lot of shit happens inside the cylinder as a titanic blast hits the side of it, just as the walls begin to glow as some type of energy rushes from the dome down towards and across the floor underneath the boards. As Pete, you're standing there and you see this glow disappear under the floor. You feel every hair on your body stand up as it rushes underneath you and then kind of comes up in those corded braids along the outside and get introduced into the cylinder. However, as it's introduced into the cylinder's no longer where it was, and it is tipping and falling towards Pete. Pete, you being the common denominator in all of this, I will allow you to move first as the energy hits the sides of the cylinder and begins to dip in, just as the cylinder and its fluid contents, Aphrodite included, are tipping and rushing out of the way. Just for sake of me remembering, let's do this. Pete, I'm going to need you to dodge. Barney and May, I'm going to need you guys to dex. Aphrodite, enjoy the ride, because there ain't shit you can do until this is over. So let's do let's do Pete first.
I will burn another crit.
So deftly moving, perhaps with a jolt of the energy itself, you're able to kind of move out of the way, and you kind of throw yourself against the opposite wall, Pete, as you kind of land from the door that you guys came in. This would be the right-hand wall that's still covered in that thick gauge of wires. The electricity that kind of poured from it is no longer conducting through. It's almost like you could see it running from the outside of this membrane, and it's kind of pulsed through and up into the actual device. And how are my dexes going for Barney and May? Uh-oh, a fail. That's close. I will let you know that 10 luck will get you where you need to be, as I am a benevolent keeper.
Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome.
I'm ready 10 luck.
Okay, so as you spend 10 luck, a fall from 15 feet is no bueno no matter how you cut it, but it's better than falling 15 feet towards the actual spill point of everything. So we're going to say that Barney and May, as they are the most seasoned duo because they have been practicing together forever in both domestic life and adventuring, they as one grab each other's hands and jump back towards Jack in the far wall as everything else tips towards the door that you were coming to. When you guys land, you each take 1 point of damage. Just the jolt of having dropped the 10 feet from your tipping point. Not too much. You land correctly. You don't get terribly injured as both of your dexes enabled you to kind of clear the collapsing structure. Aphrodite. As you are riding down in the inside of this thing and starting to slosh forward, you see the influx of energy kind of creep in as even these wires are riding with it. Upon its tipping, it's identified immediately that these wires were not part of some type of harness that kept the cylinder aloft. They ran into it and were almost draped into the cylinder. So there's nothing that the wires would do to support the cylinder from falling or remain where they were when it begins to fall. They were attached very much like a spaghetti noodle would be, or wet spaghetti noodle would be, to the outside of a cup. They're just draped and hung over, and they fall with it. So as you're falling in, and as this energy hits, it begins to course through Aphrodite's body, and while immediately you expect to have some type of pain or sensation from this, you do not. And for the moment it takes where you're still sort of submersed in this water and where it's rushing out and the energy enters into the water, for a brief moment you are inside the office of the Meadham building in New York City. But just as quickly as that, the one that you and Pete snuck into, you are swept out and you are back into the floor of this place in 1933. You land, you suffer no damage from this, and as the cylinder crashes behind you or around you as you ride it down, you're able to kind of slide out onto the floor. Your mission accomplished. But that's not exactly where we're going to end this scene. Because as Pete is up against the far wall, Pete, as everyone else is kind of lying in a heap and you are witness to all of this around you, you look over as the wall to your side opens as if a curtain is being pulled. A door opens maybe 15 feet down from you, and a woman with maybe mid-30s with a short brown bob type of haircut comes in, and she's biting into an apple. And as she bites into the apple, she turns and looks, and her eyes go wide as she's holding a clipboard and several what appears to be papers or files. And she finishes her bite into the apple, and she turns and looks around, and her eyes meet yours, Pete. And you know this person. And as we cut back to 1915, Dietrich says to Honest Pete Abraham, "Ah, yes, yeah, Abraham, Mr. Abraham, come here. I'd like you to meet, this is Werner Schmidt. He's from my homeland. And his daughter, Maxine." And you see this 20-year-old woman step out from behind her rather large father. She has short brown hair cut into a bob, and she nods as Dietrich and Honest Pete are there. Barney, you have just walked into the social car.
Piece of paper and pen in hand, Barney approaches, but he's wary of interrupting. So he sort of does that awkward thing where he hangs back and he's got the paper and the pen, and he makes sure that he angles himself so that he's within eyesight of Peter. But he doesn't interrupt the conversation, just listens.
Ah, yes, Herr Norwood. Everyone, this is Werner Schmidt. He and his daughter are, and he looks, Dietrich gives a long kind of solid stare to both Barney and Pete as he says the following. Yeah, Werner Schmidt here and Maxine are headed towards Constantinople. It appears that they are going to be attaches from Germany to in archaeological sites in Constantinople. Isn't that interesting?
Well, that sounds like an exciting expedition. How did you get chosen for this, if I might ask?
It is my expertise. Apparently it is before time of Christ, so I am being sent down there to identify and perhaps see if there's anything that the German government can do to either aid in the research or to be able to help with any type of deciphering. If there's anything, we have a vast collection of books that have come from the Crusade times, and we would be able to perhaps offer lend our services in the international effort.
Well, I have to say, I envy your position. That sounds like quite an adventure. Herr Dietrich, how did you meet?
I've just met Herr Schmidt. He's here. I heard him talking to his daughter in German. I introduced myself. We have been talking. I've told them that we are also on a trip to Constantinople, my compatriots and I, and I wanted them to know that they have at least someone around if they wish to speak German too. And you can tell that Dietrich is trying to painfully be polite. And while it seems like he's being polite, even with your limited experience with the man so far, you can tell he's trying real hard.
So,
and yeah, go right ahead.
Oh, so like, yeah, Pete would kind of shake Werner's hand, the solid Pete handshake, and would go to kiss Maxine's hand and would comment to Werner that that his daughter is a lovely Fraulein. Isn't that how you say it, Ambassador? And he would look to Joe as the speech coach.
Yeah, Fräulein. Yeah, this is Herr Abraham from America, as if that explains everything.
Yeah.
He is here to He's part of our legal and political department. And at this point, you realize that Dietrich is not good at this. He is not good at coming up with things on the fly. He's used to just saying stuff and having people accept it. He doesn't have to, back things up with facts or fiction. Backing up is not in Dietrich's playbook, just saying. So he's just saying, and he's floundering. Pete, when you lean into Maxine and say, Fraulein, she says, this man is awful. Please
Technically,
do
it is
something."
Fraulein. I said it horribly.
Right. Fraulein, but as when you come in and say it, she whispers into your ear, this man is awful. Do something to get me away from him. And you're pretty sure she means Joe.
So she whispered it, though? He would, if she's leaned in close, he would be like, what do you mean? He seems perfectly fine to me. In our endeavors, he's been nothing but polite.
I don't believe that you... At this point, Werner and Dietrich are kind of talking, kind of shielding a bit as Barney. They kind of turn their attention to Barney. So you get a chance here to say something without their knowledge. Are you trying to allow Dietrich to hear you as you're speaking, Pete? Or is this are you trying to be quiet with her?
Yeah, quiet with her, because despite Pete's persona that he's known these people for a while and they're working together, he only just met all of them recently. So any information that he could get on anybody, he would gladly accept. And I would do a genuine concern and maybe even attempt to persuade her to feel comforted.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. If you roll a charm here for me, perhaps you guys can get a little bit further away from the conversation proper to have a proper conversation.
Does she have a drink?
She does not.
Oh, perfect. Would be a hard success.
Okay, she is able... She kind of looks at your glass and motions towards the bar as the conversation turns to kind of reintroduce Pete to the circle and Maxine as Barney, you are standing witness to Werner and Joe as they talk in German a bit. I don't believe that you know any German, Barney?
Oh, I'm muted. Actually, I think I do. I just don't think it's ever come up before. I do know German.
Okay, roll for me then, whatever your percentage is, and I'll tell you what percent that you figure out.
Okay. Regular success.
Yeah, you hear every word they're saying. And basically, it's Dietrich saying to Werner, please excuse my friends. They're American. I believe this might be their first time in Europe. They're loud but likable.
Barnabas doesn't let on that he can understand them. He just kind of stands there, his eyes flickering between the two. Does Werner say anything?
He doesn't agree with Dietrich at all. If you have psychology or psychoanalysis, I will allow you to roll this if you want to try to read his body language.
I would. Hard success.
Yeah, this guy doesn't care for Joseph Dietrich. He is standing kind of shoulder lead away, the telltale tells of somebody that just don't like current company. You believe that a nationalistic fervor or the fact that they were both born in the same region means nothing to Werner, as he just doesn't like Joe. And you can tell that Dietrich is oblivious to the fact that he is not liked, as Dietrich is very, very accustomed to being liked, to being admired, to being loved, to being lusted after. This is an experience that he has no experience in.
Barnabas will interject and he'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, Herr Dietrich. We actually need to meet with May Young and Mimi uh, back in May Young's room. It's we have to go right now. I don't mean to pull you away, but it is pretty important."
Dietrich turns with the air of somebody as if duty calls. And even in German, he says to Werner, as you can see, they cannot make any decisions without me. I apologize, but the mantle of leadership is difficult one, especially at times of celebration. And then he switches back to English, and he says to Barney, "Yeah, my friend, let us go, and we will join the others. What about Herr Abraham?" And we'll cut to the bar as Pete, a couple seconds ago, while this conversation went on with Werner, Dietrich, and Barney, you were able to make it to the bar with Maxine Schmidt. As she turns and she says, "Oh, thank you so much. Oh, the man is awful. Terrible man. I think he thinks he's so attractive that he can just say stupid things and no one will notice. He's also extremely long-winded. I don't believe I got in. He doesn't even know my name. I was surprised when he introduced me correctly."
Yes, I am not a fan of people who are excessive windbags. Trust me.
She smiles as if seeing right through your shit and laughs and says, "What should we drink?"
I'm always a fan of whiskey, but lady's choice.
She turns around and in French, she orders 2 whiskeys to the bartender, who immediately pours out 2 whiskeys as she clinks the glasses. You also see in the background, Campbell Barnes sees you, Lorna Campbell Barnes sees you talking with this younger, attractive German girl and kind of smiles and shakes her head as if she's been replaced in this grand pecking order of conversations. But again, you are with...
Call her over! Call her over!
She kind of raises her eyes and nods, and she comes over and, well, hello, and who is this lovely young lady?
This would be Maxine Schmidt, attempting to introduce her correctly.
And you do so. And so the 2 women exchange pleasantries, and the moment of look on Lorna's face turns away as she is kind of, now she's a little bit more impressed with Pete, that he would invite her over, and this wasn't some type of romantic or perhaps a power scam. And so the women begin to talk and get into it, and you realize that they're quickly kind of in the same field.
Yeah, I would attempt to just kind of drop in Constantinople and then just be more of an observer of conversation.
Okay, so what you're able to glean off of this is the following: that Maxine and her father are being sent in, presumably to the same dig site that you all are being sent into, to Constantinople, to... It's exactly what Werner claimed. Any assets that the German government has in play, as far as crusade knowledge or translations or even historical evidence or maybe complementary artifacts, the dig site itself has called in members of the international community, especially like Northern Africa, over towards the steppes and whatnot into Russia, and then of course Europe proper, to see if any of the housed knowledge could be either sent via expert or even sent in person for the nationalities or the countries that are comfortable in doing that. A lot of these things are prized works of history and artifacts that they don't want to leave their borders, and so in lieu of sending actual things, they're sending the experts associated with these artifacts. Most of this seems to mesh with what Werner has said. You realize quickly that Maxine herself is here to not only accompany her father, but she seems to be an expert herself, which is interesting since she's only 20. She seems incredibly knowledgeable on Judeo-Christian religion, and she continues to mention on several occasions that she and her father were asked to research the crucifixion of Jesus Christ and to basically provide as much knowledge in fleshed out and secondary sources as were possible. And this immediately draws in Lorna, who, as earlier, claimed that she is a Bible collector and expert and believes that there are additional translations or gospels of the time of Christ. And she believes she has a lead on one of them in Constantinople. It quickly devolves into not a discussion of theology, but of timelines, and if Christ were 33 and blah, 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 he would have been here. And Pete, you can be polite for only so long as you are lost in the depth at which these two women possess knowledge on this particular subject.
Plus the continuous glass of brown that I have consumed would probably have had some kind of an impact. But I would interject and ask, so where will y'all be staying when we arrive? Do you have a particular location? Perhaps we should meet for lunch.
And they have done nothing to exclude you from the conversation, and both of them seem to realize that they were being rude, and they turn back to you, and Maxine kind of puts her hand on the top of Pete's and says, "Oh, I'm very sorry. It is wonderful to speak to someone who has the same interests, that allows you to speak." And she kind of casts an eye back towards the direction where Dietrich was. It seems I had a lot to get out. But of course, if we are all going to Constantinople, it's something that we should do. We should be able to eat and have lunch and go over what we are speaking, and perhaps we can all help one another and help the dig, the archaeological find. Perhaps we will be able to, I don't know, exchange notes.
Many hands make for light work.
I like that. And what will you be doing there in Constantinople? I zoned out when your Herr Dietrich began to speak. He said something that you were going there as well?
Yeah, just some work for the U.S. government. My associates and I are here on just as a delegation of peace, if you will, for the betterment of Europe, because it is on the backbone of a peaceful and prosperous Europe that America and the world can rely on for the good of all.
She looks at you again and smiles, her bullshit meter off the chart, but you are a welcome compromise to the dickhead meter that was going off with Dietrich. And so she smiles, and the three of you kind of devolve. Barney, you can come over at any time if you want to get him. Joe has already headed back towards the direction of the cars. As we again pull out from this scene, head further along the train, and we drill into May and Mimi. What are those two doing in 1915?
So Mimi's, just had this encounter with the woman in the hall, and she kind of like doesn't knock. She just kind of storms in and closes the door behind her, and just walks over and sits down on the bed and immediately pulls out a cigarette and starts smoking. Obviously mad.
May has her dress hung up right now. She tries to wring out the ends of it. She's in her under garments right now. And as maybe just storms in, May just looks up, says, "That took a while."
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't get you a new dress. I'm really sorry. I got distracted.
Don't worry about it. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I've just had my fill of some of the people on this train.
May kind of shrug, says, yeah, it's a certain kind of people around here.
Just rude.
Hmm. And she
Anyway,
finishes wringing out her dress. Says, I think this looks okay, right?
I'm sure it'll be fine. And I'm sorry again. I will get you a new dress. But all the boys are headed over here, so you should get dressed.
Right. Yeah, and she'll just start getting dressed.
As you're almost finished getting dressed, there is a knock at the door.
Yes?
Yes, it is I, Joseph, you required me. Do I have the right room? This is our
Yes.
room, yes.
Maybe do you want to maybe get the door? I'm still,
Sure.
and she's like still like finishing buttoning up.
Yeah, she gets up and she walks over to the door and like opens it like this much, you know. It's like, hi, she's just finishing up, but
He steps back and turns his eyes down. You can tell though that he is continuing to like look up and engage you, which could easily allow his gaze to travel over your shoulder into the room. Not that it is, but it could, because he is.
yeah, she kind of glances back over her shoulder, and like seeing May like pretty much done, like opens the door the rest of the way and is like, come on in.
So, what do you need me for? It was Bonnie told me that you needed my assistance with something.
Oh, well, I don't. He was saying that he had something to show all of us, and we just decided to meet here because it'd be easiest and we could talk privately. I'm not sure why we'd need to, but.
Okay, yeah. Talk. What do you wish to talk about? And he looks over at Mimi and says, "Do you have another one of those American cigarettes?"
Yeah, you want one?
Yeah, I would like to try one.
Yeah, she'll give him one and light it for him.
It's raw. It you can almost smell the south of your country, the earth in this tobacco. It is it's staler than I am used to, but it is different. Perhaps a quiet taste.
Well, it's all I've ever known, so.
You should try. And he produces a tin in a finely decorated cigarette case and clips it open, and inside are some dark brown rolled, almost like cigarello type of colored things. They appear to be cigarettes, but they are fancy.
Ooh. Yeah, she'll smile and reach out and take one and be like, "Thank you. I'll try it."
Trade. See, our two countries can work together.
May at this point realizing her tools and it's everywhere. It's like subtly just kind of pushing them off to the side.
Roll a luck roll for me, May.
Okay. Hard success.
Okay. Thank you. Joseph looks at all of these things and he kind of moves up, and he doesn't look disdainfully at anything, but he looks very inquisitive as he sees this array of some of them very unique looking tools. What is all of this for? These are very I don't know what any of these are really, if I'm being quite honest.
Oh, they just are what I used to work. Different tools for different things. Unless you're interested in that, it's not super fascinating. kind of taking the little side table and just kind of.
I'd be very interested in subjects that I know nothing about. I always like to learn. It is the stubborn man, the static man that does not wish to learn, and I wish to learn everything. These are fascinating to me. I would, perhaps you could teach me.
May definitely looks at Joseph with a new appreciative look. Yeah, I'd be happy to run you through some of these things. You'd have to tell me if I was getting a little too technical. I've been told that sometimes my theories go over people's heads. Yeah, perhaps some later time. I believe we are supposed to have a conversation, but
Yes, the important conversation that Barney wants us all to be here for. I stand in breathless anticipation for what Mr. Norwood has ready and in store for us. At this point, we're going to cut back, and as Barney and Pete are... Barney, you've just now reached the group of Pete and the two ladies. Take it from there.
So before Barney goes over to the group, before he leaves Werner, he'll mention to him. He'll say, I would really like to see a real archaeology site up close. I'm here doing infrastructure. I just finished working on the Panama Canal, and there were some amazing sites in South America. I hear that it's that way in Constantinople too. Is there a way that I could contact you in Constantinople, maybe visit, see what you do?
Roll a persuasion with advantage, because most of that's true.
Most of it. I will crit it.
Okay. Werner smiles and he says, the Panama Canal, that is fascinating. You helped with his construction. It's wonderful. This is absolutely. And he reaches into his pocket and he produces a business card and realizes that the information on it's not going to help once he reaches Constantinople. So he writes down the contact information that he was given for whom he should contact whenever he gets there. Yes, I'm supposed to meet this John White. I'm not sure if that is American or British, but John White, like the color. And yeah, and he gives it to you. And yeah, you come and we could use you, especially if there is something that needs supported and they don't wish to have anything kind of collapse. Someone that knows modern engineering. The Panama Canal that's fascinating. You could tell these people, these men and women, that it definitely looks like it could help you. And but your friend Herr Dietrich, is he into infrastructure as well? Did he help on the canal? He said nothing about this though.
No, he wasn't part of the canal. Herr Dietrich is our contact. He understands the, as you well know, delicate political climate in Europe. And it's our goal, like with the Panama Canal, to find ways to invest in a more global community, a community that is united. And Herr Dietrich is sort of an advisor, a contact point. I haven't spoken much to him, but he's been forthcoming, at least.
Yeah. A bit of advice, just from someone who I haven't spoken with you very long, but if you have just met this Herr Dietrich, do as much of your own speaking as you can. Don't cut yourself short. Provided you can have a common language with some of these people, I think that you might be a better. And he kind of looks around. You are more worldly and warmer. I don't know how to say this politely. He's a bit of a prick. So if you could maybe you sit forward and don't just trust him because he's European. You could do well speaking for yourself. This is just my opinion. But
Barney
please come
cracks
to
a,
the archaeological site.
Cracks a big smile and he says, "Well, thank you for the advice. I definitely appreciate it. You've been very helpful, and I look forward to seeing you work. It sounds very exciting."
And I wish perhaps drinks and talk about the Panama Canal and the. I would love to hear how you circumnavigate the elevation problem. And I read about it peripherally, but I didn't hear about exactly. I think it's trade secrets probably, but I would love to hear more about it. It's something fantastic, I think.
Absolutely. I would love to have that conversation. I have to go meet with my friends now, but I hope you enjoy the rest of your ride.
It's already looking up. Well met. And he shakes your hand.
And shakes his hand firmly, and then he'll go do that creep up, not trying to interrupt Pete, but looking for a way to make sure that Pete can see him.
Pete, you see him approaching just around the time that the women are saying that lunch would be good.
Okay. Admiral! Admiral, come on over here! And would like do the welcoming, like arm around, and ladies, let me introduce you to the Admiral. And like, for Barney's sake, there's the drink in one hand and a cigar in the other. And Pete probably smells pretty bad of both. And the Admiral, he's our military guy, if you will. And Admiral, let me you are familiar with Maxine Schmidt, making sure to pronounce the name correctly. And this lovely lady here, Lorna Campbell Barnes.
Both women nod as it is pretty close.
Barney will reach to start shaking their hands. He's very used to shaking hands, but then realize that maybe that's not how this introduction should work, and he'll kind of pull his hand back, and he'll just say politely but a little quietly, "Ladies, it's very nice to meet you, and I'm sure that Pete here has been wonderful company, but I'm afraid I have to steal him away from you, if you don't mind."
Oh, yeah. We're going to meet in Constantinople. And Lorna's like, absolutely. We're going to see you all pretty soon. We know everybody's going to be on the train for the next couple of days, so everything will work out. This will be great. And everybody in 1915, as the convergence of conversations reaches a head, both in the forward cars and the aft cars, you begin to feel the train slowing. Until finally it stops and you can hear the wind whistling outside. Several of the stewards look around like this isn't not a stop. We're nowhere near our first stop. And several men come into the far car towards the rear of the train. And just in time for you to see several more like long trench-coated clad men coming forward. They pass by where Dietrich and May and Mimi are, and they're kind of sweeping down through the cars. And as they walk by, one of them turns to Dietrich and says, yeah, monsieur, please, we've had a bit of an accident. Apparently a woman has jumped off the train. We need to see if we can't help her. We believe she may have slipped. She's just a few doors down here. We think she was in a nightgown or a light outfit. It is snowing outside. Just please bear with us. There was an accident. And back in the social car, spreading like wildfire through this area, you hear Barney and Pete also hear that a woman has jumped off the train, and that you quickly hear that she was wearing nothing but a nightgown. And when they believe what car it came from, Barney, you're aware that this is the same car in which you all have your sleeper compartments. And as the revelation hits, and as Maxine's eyes kind of look over and they look at Pete almost for confirmation, we switch back to 1933 as the woman coming in, 18 years older, still with the short haircut, still attractive, turns and looks, bites through the apple, matches the gaze of Pete Abraham, now 15 years older as well. Pete. And she sees that the cylinder is down. Oh my God. Pete, you're not supposed to. Why are you here? And she begins to back up through the door. You must not be here. And you hear her begin to run down the hall.
Oh boy. I will attempt to holler out to her, and I would Fraulein Maxine Schmidt, making sure to pronounce the name as best I can.
You can't see her as she's already disappeared, and you hear for a moment the footfalls stop, but then you hear them kind of slowly start back up again.
Help. Is there any way you can help?
You must leave, Bonnie. You must leave May. Come, Pete.
Remember that time?
You
with
hear the
Joe?
footfalls. You hear the footfalls running away.
Oh, she's gone.
She's running, yeah. The door is still open, though.
Oh man. I will yell to May and to Mimi and to Barney, and I will attempt to make my way towards the door where it is, to at least try to like scout out the area.
As you turn, you realize, and you kind of clear the doorway that she came through. You see a hardwood floored hallway beyond that has intermittent doors, and about 25 yards down, you see Maxine as she's turning and looking back at you, and she says, Pete, why did you come? And she turns, and the apple drops to the ground as she's now kind of running towards a door at the end of the hall.
I had to, Maxine. I had to be here, but I don't exactly know where here is.
She's just running. The rest of you are heard Pete yell, Barney and May, you're closest to this. Aphrodite, you are furthest from this. Any of you can see him at the door yelling down, speaking into the distance, into the hallway, as he is yelling out Maxine. He's spoken the name pretty clearly, and you can see him and act towards him. I need to know what Pete needs to do right now. She's not responding to your voice.
I will attempt to follow. I will split the party, potentially.
Okay, so you see Pete disappear into this new door that's appeared. May, Barney, what are you doing?
So we've just kind of rolled and we're like getting back to our feet.
Yep.
After the fall. How far are we from the door?
You guys are pretty close. You're only about 10 yards away from it, so you can clear the distance pretty quick.
And how far are we away from Aphrodite?
About 20 yards, if she's where the cylinder fell. You can't really see her because there's a lot of kind of broken structure in the way.
Barney will look to May and offer her a hand again, and very meaningfully, he'll say, we got to get through that door. Leave her. We have to leave her.
May glances over at where she thinks Aphrodite is. Okay.
I'm sorry. And he'll If she's with him, then he'll start running.
Aphrodite, what are you doing?
She gets to her feet and just kind of looks around at her handiwork and would see that the door has opened and would probably see everybody leaving. And she just kind of starts walking that way, not in a hurry, not like she's chasing them. Just doesn't know where else to go.
Okay, so as Pete is using his cane to try to keep up with Maxine, who is outpacing him, Maxine reaches the end of the hall and fumbles for an archaic ring of keys. And as she's kind of fumbling for it, Pete's closing the gap, and she inserts one of the keys, and it clicks open, and she opens the door. And she begins to move through as Pete's maybe 10 feet behind or this open door. And as Barney and May enter into this this hallway, Barney, I need you to make a sanity check. For a moment, you think that you're having some type of episode when you realize you've just run into a hallway in the asylum. And as you take a couple steps, you freeze as the same smells, the same everything assaults you, as this is the asylum in which you spent so much of your time recuperating from the earlier adventures of Project Cronus. And as you're standing there, you kind of drag for a minute as May then kind of outpaces you. And as you stare and look around, we cut back to Aphrodite. Aphrodite, as you kind of walk towards the hallway and begin to turn in, you see past, and in the glass, you see Jack Kilgrave. And he, in the water, raises his hand up and kind of extends it in he recognizes you.
She stops like dead in her tracks and like as fast as she can is getting over to Jack.
For a moment, Jack's on the other side as he's looking down, and though he's covered in a liquid, he sees what's happened to you, and you can see in the fluid, Jack's chin trembles as his lips quiver, as he is completely taken aback by the sight of the girl, the woman that he knew as Mimi. And he kind of, you see him pound, and you hear the against the glass as he's like, has his hands up as if trying to get to you. And you can tell that he is just, you can feel it even through the glass. You feel this grief, this absolute sorrow and guilt that Jack Kilgrave is feeling as he looks at you. And as he pounds, and finally he just drops to the silt. It puffs up around his knees as he hits, and he just leaves his hand up against the glass.
She's like the same, like pounding on the glass, like trying to get through. And the others could hear her screaming.
Make a strength check for me. On about the third hit, a spider web of cracks appear in the glass at your hand strike as you boom. And Jack looks up as he sees one of the cracks come down in front of him. And he looks up and stands up and looks at the point that you hit, and a trickle of water, or what looks like water, begins to come out and hit the ground. Ice Cool Tea donated $12, so everybody gets a crit. I will be re-updating these crits with both Big Pigs and Ices in just a minute, as there is love out there for our Olympians. And as you kind of turn We cut back now to the end of the hall as Maxine turns and opens the door and begins to move through. And Pete, you are the first and perhaps only one that can see as you get there. Behind, you see what looks like the real world, as there are people walking by in the background. It seems like it's inside some type of library or some type of place of learning, maybe of academia or something of that nature. And she turns, and as she looks, she goes, "Oh, Pete, why did you come back?" And she closes the door on Honest Pete Abraham. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where we will close the door on today's episode of Project Cronus. So, kids, let's start with Summer. Summer, what'd you think?
Oh man. Yeah, I have a lot of feelings. A lot of feelings right now. That was amazing. I'm so happy that we're all back. That was an incredible episode, everybody. Y'all kill me. You're so good. Yeah, I'm in shock, for a lack of a better word. I'm dead.
Where can we find you being dead, Summer? I put your Twitter link in chat, but there are surely more things that we can specifically see you dying on.
Oh God,
what would that
yeah.
be?
So many things. I have a channel here on Twitch called Off the Table. It's off_the table, where we stream Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're playing a ton of different games. We're playing D&D, Burning Wheel, Monster of the Week, Monster Hearts, Sagas of the Icelanders, Mutants and Masterminds, and we have an advice show every Thursday. It's super fun. And then Tuesdays, I'm on Unmade Gaming playing whatever we're playing that week, because right now we're in kind of a limbo. And then Saturdays, I am here, obviously. And then starting next Saturday, bi-weekly, Kiana and I will both be playing Dungeon World on Anaris's channel at 5 PST. So that's everything, I think, for right now.
Fantastic and great stuff it is. A fun time will be had by all. Show up, see her play great games, and die 5 or 6 times in each episode. What else is better?
No.
Kiana, not that you're better, you're equal. Let's go ahead and go over to you. What did you think?
Every single episode is so amazing. It just like makes my mind explode every single time that we see, every time we switch back. It's always like, oh, right, going from happy fun times to not great times at all. This is fine. This is cool. But no, I love this series so much and the story. And now we're really starting to see the connections with Project Athena, which I'm very excited to kind of investigate and explore. What the fuck is Maxine doing? Who knows? But until next Saturday, you guys can find me over on Twitter at KianaS. I am all over the internet doing things everywhere. I have a podcast called Lady Slaying Dragons, which releases new episodes every Sunday evening. Me, two cool ladies talking about tabletop gaming. We have a really cool series all about visual representation coming up with some really great interviews with cool people that I can't talk about yet, but they will happen and they'll be up. So definitely check us out over on Twitter at Lady Slay. I'm on Counter Roleplay on Mondays with Greg as my keeper, doing some Atomic Cthulhu. The bomb dropped. It's bad. Nuclear annihilation is here. We somehow survived, I don't think, for much longer. On Tuesdays, I'm over on WebDM with some Spelljammer 5e fun, also with Greg, but he's my fellow player and not trying to kill me. On Wednesdays, I am on Scoticus's channel, DMing One Shot Wonders, which is my series of D&D one-shots that I get to do a new setting every month. We're doing the Feywild this month. It's super fun. As Summer said, Saturdays, new Dungeon World campaign starting next week. We're actually playing characters that don't like each other at all. So that's going to be new. That's going to be different. And actually, right after this, I'm over on Scott's channel playing D&D for some charity. We're raising money for Racist Texas, help kids at borders, help reunite families. super awesome stuff. It's a full 25 and a half hours situation. So I am like the third or fourth game that's happening. Whole day thing. So please go check us out. I'm doing like a quick costume change and then doing my evil DM stuff over there.
Absolutely. Yes, I was on there earlier. Kiana is going to be taking over next. We will be sending the love that way as soon as we get done here. But let's go over to Dawn. Dawn, what do you think?
We survived in 1933, and I wasn't sure that was going to happen, so that's good. But it's also terrible because we survived, and now that means we have to go through more shit. I'm looking forward to it. I promise that Barnabas will put pen to paper in the next episode, one way or another. It's gonna happen. In the meantime, you can catch me on Twitter at Donathan Fry. I play a bunch of games too. I do a bunch of different stuff. Follow me there if you want to find out more about writing and games and stuff that I do. This week I'll shout out at Tentacles Pod on Twitter, Tomes and Tentacles, which I do with Greg. It's an awesome Call of Cthulhu podcast. The story's getting real close towards the end of this, this sort of anthology style story. So now's a good time to start binging because you might make it to the end right about the time that it wraps up.
Absolutely, absolutely. I second that emotion. It is a hell of a good story that Mr. Ben Counter at Ben Counter is weaving. Can't wait to see how it ends. Don't want to see how it ends because I don't want it to end. Finney, what do you think, brother?
Well, I think Pete usually says 4 more years, but I would call for 4 more hours of Project Cronus. That was I had a blast. I think it was I was glad to be back. It was nice seeing Pete kind of in his element in the schmoozing of people and just kind of amongst the and being able to drink a lot. I think that was nice too, and playing with such an excellent group of people. Love all of you guys. You guys are just awesome. Even you, Greg. But yeah, I'm at Flathagen. Luckily, I am only here on Saturdays. So, Greg, you are my everything. So, yeah, again, following with what Steven says, follow all these people. Follow Project Athena. They're all great. They add so much to the community. Just wonderful, wonderful content. Thanks for having me.
Thank you much, buddy. Thank you much. And as for me, I'm Grimjack21502 on the Twitches and the Twitters. Make sure you check us out on YouTube, as all episodes are usually posted by Wednesday of the day of air, and we're obviously live here on Saturdays, 2 to 4 Eastern. Tomorrow night on the channel, we will have the sister show, Project Athena, going from 7 to 9 here on the channel, and then I'll just say channel stuff this time as we go next Friday from 12 to 2 for Conan, Age Undreamed Of, followed from 2 to 4 by Firefly, Tales from the Big Damn Verse. And in a few short weeks on the channel, we will also be experiencing a little bit of Flash Gordon. What? Yeah, it's going to be fun. So we're going to do all that and have a great time, but we're going to be here in 1953 something or other. Until then, thank you very much for Ice for the contributions. Thank you everybody in chat for being awesome. I'm going to send you over now to another awesome cat by the name of Scrat, so you can be there when Kiana takes the Diemma. I am fucking nailing it. All right. You guys are set to go. We will see you all next week. Love you. We'll be waiting for you.